Turn on your mojo. Gonna give you like a drum roll thing. I have that.
It's good. All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Fog Wanderers podcast episode. This is our second big episode in terms of starting off this actual as a series. I'm joined always by my co-hosts, Rafi from Rafi Does
Hello.
Video,
Turn on your mojo.
and of course Pixel from Pixel Bush.
Gonna give you like a drum roll thing.
This,
I have that.
it's good. All right. And hello. What we're basically going to be talking about is a bunch of what's new in the horror world. Obviously, Fog Wanderers is obviously based off the Dead by Daylight properties, as you viewers may know. However, we do delve into the more broad scopes of horror gaming as well, just to prepare you for, our topics for today. So we're gonna get started with the biggest topic, obviously, of the day, and that would be the announcement from Jason Blum over at Blumhouse Productions that he would be delving into gaming. They've actually opened up a whole new branch called Blumhouse Games that is going to be entirely dependent upon outside studios to develop games and properties within their own IPs with a $10 million budget each. So they're going in like all in on this. So $10 million budgets, that's about average for what is known as a triple-I game. A lot of people know AAA, a lot of people know indie. Triple-I is the midway point between the two. It's the larger independent teams, so like Steelwool Studios for Security Breach, or some of the other games that are recently being added to the Xbox Series X library. There's one that's particularly like about witchcraft. There's one that's coming out for that's based off witchcraft that's supposed to be really exciting, and the graphics look absolutely phenomenal for it. It's more of like a cinematic story than it is a game, but it's those kinds of games that we should be expecting out of this new announcement. But the thing that's crazy is exactly how big of a door this opens up. The door is huge now because we're talking about games based off of all of Blumhouse's properties with pretty much unless it's a team that doesn't know what they're doing, it's got a pretty much 100% success rate of we're going to make a game based off this thing, which includes the following list: Megan, which honestly I would rather live without, Insidious, The Exorcist, Halloween, the East Rail 177 trilogy, or otherwise known as the Unbreakable trilogy with Split and Glass, The Black Phone, The Lazarus Effect, The Invisible Man, Five Nights at Freddy's, of course, but that's already in gaming, Spawn, The Purge, Paranormal Activity, and with Blumhouse's recent merger with Atomic Monster, that means that they also have access to The Conjuring, Malignant, and Lights Out. So not only is it likely that these properties could be added to other games in the future now, just in terms of video game licensing, such as, Dead by Daylight chapters or anything else, but they could also very well get their own games. So, what do you guys think about that?
I think it's interesting. I'm really interested to see if they can what they can do with Halloween, with the Blumhouse Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of those seem good. I don't know about Megan. I haven't seen Megan yet, so I couldn't tell you if it would make a good game or not, but it sounds interesting as well. But it sounds like a good list of IPs that could work, and this one may give you something interesting too if they make it from a survivor's point of view. What about you, Pixel? What do you think?
As soon as I heard the word outsourced, that they would not be trying to do what Netflix is doing, kind of trying to make these in-house, I was very much happier, because TV and film executives do not know anything about how to make a good game. They know literally nothing about it. Because the last game they played was in 1995, and it was a Pac-Man arcade game or something. Because they were about 90 years old. I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm surprised they didn't. I expect probably in the next couple of months we'll see some sort of announcements about IPs likely to get we hear rumbles of early talk being made. Franchises I think we should be keeping an eye out for, as said before, Halloween, The Purge. That's one we should be keeping an eye out for. And please, dear God, like this is Malignant. I have done something on the podcast before. I've just been out like ages advertising Malignant, and I'll be doing that again if needs must. But
I was
Atomic
really
Monster is very exciting.
I know for sure based off of our last episode that as soon as I read off that Malignant was way more likely now to be involved either in its own game or a DLC or something, you were gonna go nuts. I knew.
I think I was muted at the time, and I'm pretty sure the audience still had my brain just. You heard my neurons activate.
Yeah, no, it's insanely good, and $10 million budget is a really high budget. I actually did a lot of in-depth research. 10 million is on the high end of the AAA budget, so it's borderline AAA and AAA. Because indie games, even the biggest of indie studios, making their own stuff. So this isn't including stuff like Security Breach, which is outsourced licensing kind of deal. This is more of like, let's see, not Paranormal Tales. What's the other one? Phasmophobia. Phasmophobia is now a bigger team. And because of that, their budget is a higher budget, which is more in the $750,000 range, which is still less than a tenth of what they're offering to these teams to make games based off of what they own, which is insane. It means that like whatever we're gonna get is gonna be good as long as the people that make it know what they're doing. So that's exciting. I'm personally excited about the East Row 177 trilogy. I have fought my life. I have fought so hard for someone to notice the like raw talent and power of like M. Night Shyamalan when he's able to do his own thing. I did see Knock at the Cabin, that new movie that just came out like a couple weeks ago, by M. Night Shyamalan, and it's not great, and it's because he didn't have full control over the script. He was forced to write it with like 2 other people, and it's also hard to make stuff as twisty and turny as M. Night Shyamalan when it's based off of a book or something, right? Like it's hard to have creative liberty when it's based off of something. But M. Night Shyamalan's like raw power comes out of his original stories and the expansion of the universes that he built. Like the Village was a great story. Lady in the Water was fantastic, and of course the Unbreakable trilogy was like peak. Like a superhero world that is more subtle and more grounded in the roots of reality, and that's some I could play like an Infamous knockoff of that universe. So that's just so exciting to me that they're able to branch out like that.
I could see it. My only concern is the fact that there hasn't been any like stirrings from that particular brand or like IP in a while does worry me with how reluctant they might be to commit to something like that. I think we should be keeping our eyes out for definitely Halloween and The Purge are the big 2. Yeah. Those are either very recently active franchises or currently active franchises. The Purge can simply just go on forever at this point. Like, imagine an open world Purge game.
Yeah.
Oh boy, that would be incredible.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Halloween would be pretty good too. I mean, Michael has been an iconic character forever, but he's never had like an amazing video game. Closest we got to anything super great for Michael was when he first came to Dead by Daylight. Yeah. And since then, he's kind of lowered himself down in there, where he's more of a. Yeah. I don't even know how the best way to describe it without being like. He deserves his own game.
Yeah. I agree. It feels like he's fallen behind the times to some extent.
Mm-hmm. Well, he was at the time, were Freddy and Leatherface already in the game before Michael showed up?
No, Michael was the first one.
Michael was the first. Okay, so he was the first real licensed chapter. And,
yes, he was. He was the first one.
And because of that, like, when he came out, that was actually, I think, when I started playing Dead by Daylight was when he came out. And
that's when I started getting interested.
That's what brought everyone to the game, was like, oh shit. Now we're getting killers and stuff like that are top of the line. This is what we know. This is awesome. He's super powerful. Now that we're getting into this, era of craziness of like we're getting all these killers with way more interesting and sophisticated powers, you know, and more versatility and utility than Michael. Michael was like, he's really good, he's got power, and he's got potential to be better, but he just hasn't been worked around. Like, I know they did a huge rework with Freddy, right? And
it's really hard to do that for Michael, because Michael's like, his power right now is probably the most in-canon power we have for a lot of the killers we have in the game. Besides, like, maybe Leatherface is just a guy with chainsaw, but
right.
like, he sucks.
I think Pinhead takes the title there, I'm afraid.
Yeah, now
Pinhead is superbly
does,
good.
Yeah.
Like, genuinely, if you showed a DVD player from 2016 and you showed them Pinhead's kit, they would faint.
Yeah.
They absolutely would faint.
Yeah.
That's
like,
true.
It's genuinely really impressive how far we've come in not even that long. Like, it's been, like, it'll be, what, 7 years? That's actually not as long as it seems, because given what the game was like back in 2016, a lot has changed. And when would you say is a cutoff point? Like, when do you think the notion of kind of the old licenses, like, when do you think behavior took a big step forward in terms of the quality of licensed content? When would you say that? Do you think there is a single set chapter where you go, okay, this is where it started to really get good? Because I remember people always said
Ghostface for sure. Somewhere past
because I remember people always used to say original chapters are better than licensed because the power's better, but ask anybody recently and they probably give you a very different answer to that. They probably say that the licensed characters are generally done better.
Like Wesker and Pinhead and...
Yeah. Even Sadako.
It's pretty much as soon as Stranger Things hit the... because Stranger Things was the exact chapter right after Ghostface was officially added. And
I think Stranger Things is probably the right answer.
And everything after Stranger Things was no longer based around this is retro. Like, you know, we had Saw, we had Freddy Krueger, Halloween, we had
wait, wasn't Pig? Wait, I thought Pig was before Stranger Things, because it was like right after.
No. That's what I'm saying is like Saw, Freddy, all these killers are all before. They're all the classic era of slasher horror.
Not a good start for a licensed chapter.
Yeah, and then Stranger Things. Then Stranger Things comes out because that's the hype, right? Like, we have Ghostface in the game, cool. Stranger Things is the biggest show on Netflix right now. Let's try and get Stranger Things in the game. They do. Now it's no longer about the classics. Now it's about what is interesting, what's going to get people to play the game. So after Stranger Things, we got Silent Hill, we got Resident Evil, we got Hellraiser. We got we got Sadako.
We got the Swedish Chef. What?
We got all sorts of these crazy chapters that everybody's been hyped for, because they were all after they listened to the fandom instead of the classics, you know. So
I
think Stranger Things was the turning point for really high quality licensed content. Like compare Hawkins to the last license before that was Gideon. Compare Hawkins to Gideon, or compare Gideon to Midwich. Like the difference in like visual quality and faithfulness to the original IP, it's beyond compare. It really is. I truly do think Stranger Things was the turning point for DVD's high quality licensed content.
Right.
And Silent Hill was probably like the codifier, but Stranger Things I think was the first one.
Yeah.
They started this back.
And that was definitely the big change. Because we're now going into, and this is going to add on to a little bit of a discussion. We'll get to it later, but we're going into chapters that are now, they're also changing. We're going now from what's hype to what is now mechanically different. Like, which was something that I don't think the devs were prepared for. Was they had originally announced back when they did, I think it was Legion, because they did Legion and then they did Ghostface. And they have relatively similar abilities. You know, Ghostface has the stalking ability of Michael, but mechanically compared to a killer, if you were going to compare one or the other, it would be Ghostface compared to Legion. And I think it was around that time that there was an interview with Matthew Cote who explained that when they want to have a mechanic with two killers, or when they want to have a mechanic introduced in the game, they will use it pretty much twice on one killer and another killer before they move on to the next ability and try to change the meta and stuff like that. We're getting new abilities every chapter now. Like it is just it's a constant change. And so I think we're getting ready for another new era of Dead by Daylight, but that
I agree. I feel like that's a topic we'll have to wait till further into the podcast.
Perhaps, yes.
Yeah, that'll wait for the third topic and final topic of the podcast.
I think we should go ahead and mosey on to our second one, don't you think, my friend?
Yeah. Our second topic for the day, of course, is the not as recent news, but still recent enough to cover, is the announcement of A Quiet Place Day 1 officially beginning filming. Which hints at something I was talking about earlier off cam, was how like we have the Quiet Place video game that has been delayed almost what looks like indefinitely, and we have this movie finally beginning to get filmed. I know a few friends of mine that are actually beginning to try to create their own company to be able to work on like a Quiet Place tabletop role-playing game, something to be able to involve people in the world a little bit better. And it's this kind of stuff that makes me intrigued in terms of like what exactly is the plan for this license, because the original plan for this, I believe, was supposed to be a Cloverfield movie, and then I think something with John Krasinski, something happened between communication between Paramount and John Krasinski where they made the call to attempt to make the movie its own thing and expand on its own thing, and of course it's working. But so far the only things that we have in this franchise are the movies. Other than the game that's been delayed indefinitely, we have 2 movies. This franchise is in its infancy, so I'm curious what we're gonna do with this.
I'll be totally honest with you. I haven't thought a lot about it. Like, there's so much good horror going on now, both in terms of like good sequels and good new original like movies and shows, that Quiet Places to me sort of gets lost in the noise. If you'll pardon the pun. Like, there's so much that's going on now. Like, the Hellraiser TV series in production at HBO. Like, there's multiple Prey sequels being bandied about. There's Friday the 13th somehow coming back from the dead. Like, there is so much going on now that, at least to me, Quiet Place just kind of feels like just another one. And given how sporadic its releases are, I think that when it makes its return to cinemas, which it will, it's going to be received well. I have no doubt about that, and it's probably going to be a pretty good movie. But I think in terms of expanding it as a brand beyond that, I don't think it's achieved the kind of cultural staple, because not because of lack of quality, just because of the relative infrequency of the film's releases. If we were to see them more frequently, then I'd suspect it may be more likely to see the brand expanded.
Yeah. Well, it's just like the second movie, I would argue, was the least well received, and there was decent criticism for that. Like, for example, the first 5 minutes of the movie kind of reminding the audience that they had this super overpowered way of stopping them was kind of like, it was like a shoot to the foot, in the sense of like, oh, well, I'm not scared of these things anymore, and then the rest of the movie didn't really do anything to make you scared of anything else or make it so you were scared of them again. But the first movie was revolutionary, like to the point where Netflix had to make a cheap copycat as an original on Netflix. And
you're talking about Bird Box, aren't you?
No, they made another movie. Bird Box was different. Bird Box was also.
Yeah, I was gonna say Bird Box was more like was based off a novel.
Yeah, no, I'm not talking about that. There's another movie that is on Netflix. I don't think it's there anymore because of the legal trouble they got in. But it was the exact same premise. The only difference was the monster. The monster in Quiet Place is this big, really insane-looking monster, versus the ones in this spin-off were like these Dimorphodon looking bat rat frickin' things, and they also hunted based off sound. Like, it was the same movie, but it had Stanley Tucci in it. And
dear God.
it was the silence. It's the silence.
Yeah. And that movie came like maybe 4 or 5 months after the success of A Quiet Place. Like and that just goes to show that if they're already so willing to copy the premise, that you have something. It's just a matter of displaying it the right way. You know, the direction they went with the second one wasn't the smartest route they could have gone. Because now, like, you know, they have to make A Quiet Place Day One as their next movie, because the end of the second movie, spoiler alert for those who haven't seen it, but it's been long enough, it's like 3 years after that movie came out, so I'm not too worried about it. But they have the frequency globally, you know, through the radio. Like the monsters are screwed. Like, if you're not using the radio to protect yourself against these things, you're an idiot. So the fact that they can't make any other sequels. I mean, they could off different families, but it will all lead to the frequency. So they have to make a prequel so we know what happened before that. That being said, there are a lot of things to break down in those pictures of Day One. Like, for example, the title card that they had on the you know what it's called. They slam it down. It's got the lines on it. They call action when they slam it. I forget what those things are called. But on the picture of that where it says A Quiet Place Day One, it's in front of an image of New York City, which was in the first movie on the wall of Lee Abbott's office. One of the first newspapers on there was like, New York has fallen. It was like a really big headline. And because it was one of the few cities at the time of the invasion that had first gone down. Like, it was one of the, it was the city that lasted the longest against these things before they came in and just ruined everything. And so I am curious to see what they have in store. I hope it expands the story a lot better, so that way we can have sequels and stuff like that where the frequency doesn't work anymore, or they've adapted or anything like that, because these things are supposed to be, like, according to Krasinski, they were able to adapt to the point where their planet freaking exploded, and they survived the explosion of their own planet and gripped onto a meteor for dear life, survived the entry into the atmosphere, and now are running rampant on Earth. Like, if they can survive all of that, then they're able to adapt to the sound. So there's got to be some way that they could write that into the canon and make it better.
I thought about Critters when you said that. For some reason, it makes me think of Critters. I don't know why. It just, I don't know. There's a lot of stuff, and like we were talking about, the silence reminds you of like rip-offs and stuff. So you know that it's a good series. I mean, like every good series has its knockoff, you know. So, but I don't know. Quiet Place is one of those things where, like, I'm not scared of the monsters because I don't find them believable.
Right. And
that's just my gripe with A Quiet Place. It's like, you're telling me they survived an entire explosion of the planet, the Earth's atmosphere, and the ninth phase, and I'm like, man, whew, that was a trip. I need a breather. No, right to the killing.
So go ahead.
I just think it's a kind of franchise that works well if you don't have to think about it, like the plot of it too much, and focus more on the characters. But the problem is, the more sequels you do, the more plotty you kind of have to get.
Right. Because
the characters can go through as many arcs as they want. You could, like, life goes on, but you have to also, like, justify keeping making the movies from a plot perspective, and that's much harder to do, as you said, with the frequency and all that. Mm-hmm. It's significantly harder to it's just a franchise that doesn't easily lend itself to serialization.
Yeah.
And I think that is one of the reasons it has struggled to get off the ground as of late.
Probably. I think if they did like a sequel and they make like one of them like ridiculously like weird and overpowered looking, I'd probably be way more down to watch. It's like okay, we gotta be quiet, and then just big bulbous thing comes out fucking nowhere. And it's just like, now they can see. Well, that would be something scary.
Well, the interest that I have in this universe is, like, for myself, I have sedadophobia. I'm afraid of silence already. So the fact that I'm sitting through a loud theater that's normally loud, that is dead quiet the whole time, was already scary. So the jump scares landed every time. Like, it was perfect for me in terms of, like, a movie that could always scare the living crap out of me. And the second movie didn't have as much of that, but it had a lot of more of it was opening the door to a lot more. You're seeing, you know, the people by the docks that had to survive. You're seeing their friend who lives in the factory and how his story went, you know. And so a lot of people are interested in those stories. They're interested in what happened to everybody else.
Yeah.
And they could go a million miles with that, especially in different environments, you know, because these things did not just land in New England. They landed, I believe the newspaper said that they had also landed, one had landed in Brazil, so they're in South America, and then another one landed somewhere in Hong Kong, so they're all over Europe at this point. So the depending on the amount too. So like for example in New England, I did the math myself. I did, because I'm a huge nerd on this franchise. I did the math on how many there were, and we've only seen like 6 of them on screen, and there were supposed to be enough to take down New York. If there's only 6, they wouldn't be able to take down a city like that. So there had to have been a larger number, and according to other theorists that have done the math, they estimated that just in New England there were about 15 to 20. So we've only seen a third or a fourth of how many there actually are, and that's just in New England. So bigger chunks landed in Brazil, and I think the largest chunk landed in Hong Kong. If there's enough of them that survived on that, then that means that there are a ton. So I want to see a circumstance where, like, you're in the snow, or you're in the desert where there's like no water there, you know, because that was the thing. It was like if there's running water, they can't hear you over the water. That was like one way of like kind of surviving where they were. I live in Arizona where there is a drought. There is no water over here. The closest waterfall that I could think of is way the hell up by the Grand Canyon, and there's no way I could make it up there without one of them finding me first. And you know, like there, I would love to see these alternate situations where things didn't pan out as well. But
I mean, I'm just waiting for the Quiet Place versus Aliens comic.
Oh god, we are getting a lot.
Yeah, they would, wouldn't they? You know they would.
Yeah, they would.
They would. Okay, but let's go.
Quiet Alien Place.
Let's go ahead to Quiet Alien Place. God. Let's move on to the third topic of the day, and it's obviously the one that I'm sure the fans watching have been waiting for, considering that, you know, this is called Fog Wanderers. It's a Dead by Daylight based stream. Let's talk about Dead by Daylight.
Gonna explode! Watch out! Here comes the lore.
Let's talk about the new killer, the Skull Merchant. My right off the bat thoughts: this should have been Predator, 100%. The blade, the drones, the hunting camp, everything about it just rambles Predator in my head. And the fact that it wasn't either tells me that it's going to be added later as a skin, or something went wrong with the licensing agreement.
Or it could be like Legion and Ghostface, where it's just like a concept idea. They have
I think that's far more likely. I think that is oceans more likely.
What, the concept idea?
Yeah, they just took some inspirations and cues from Predator. I think the whole. I have a lot of long, complicated reasons why I think the notion of it being like an abandoned Predator chapter or something. I think that is some tinfoil hattery, if I do say so myself. Mm-hmm. And I just because chapters are made so far in advance that I don't see a reality in which the license just gets pulled at the last minute, and then like the drones are such a. I don't think a Predator power that they would have started out from scratch would have had the drone mechanic, and that's literally her entire kit. Yeah. It feels like a very strange thing, but like, oh, we'll give her a whole new power, but she can keep the arm blade. It's so. It feels like such a weird selection of traits to keep if it was going to be a scrap Predator power, and it seems so unlikely given how we know how behavior works with licenses. They sort this stuff out probably like 18 months, maybe even 2 years in advance. It seems extraordinarily unlikely that development had gone far enough for these elements to be incorporated into the design, but not so far that that the license holders couldn't back out.
Yeah.
It seems outstandingly unlikely, and I honestly, it sounds kind of harsh, but I every time I see a creator put out a video about that, it makes me it just rubbed me the wrong way. So sorry to sound really forceful about this. It just rubs me the wrong way.
It's stupid because they make so many advances. It's like there's already pre-planned things. If they were to back out, they wouldn't even bother making the project at all. They would scrap it and do something else with it later.
I think it's just tinfoil hat conspiracy theories made by people who want to feel smart, and that irks me so much.
In my defense, in terms of my statement of this, I didn't say when. I didn't say when the license got pulled. So if this is 2 years in advance, my thought is they tried 2 years ago. And 2 years ago, Alien and Predator were still with Fox, and they were relatively greedy with their licenses when it came to that point because they were going under. So it's possible they reached out for a Predator chapter a couple years back. They said no. And they started developing this as a response to that of like, we're going to make this chapter just because, you know, the aesthetic's cool, the power sounds like it would fit in our game and that kind of stuff. So I still think it could have something to do with the license pulling out. I just disagree with everyone's. I agree with you that everyone's theory is of like, oh, you know, like we're 1 week away from the PTB and there's a leak about Predator. We're not doing Predator anymore. Like that. They don't have the time or the resources.
Love is leaving the fog.
Yeah. They don't have time or the resources to develop not just one, but like 2 chapters because they would have to make it Predator, and then if they pulled out, they would have to start all over to redesign the characters and stuff like that. There's not a lot of time there. They can't do that. So I disagree with everyone's conspiracy of like this happened last week. But I do think that there are some chapters that are like cutting a little bit close, and they aren't, even if they're planned 2 years in advance. I still think there was an attempt at a discussion 2 years ago that went wrong. And we don't know that now because it's 2 years later. Like we're not going to get a peep about that. But
I think the reason why a lot of people probably jumped to the conclusion it's probably stopped Predator chapter is people thought that the Knight was going to be part of For Honor, like a collaboration with For Honor. Yeah, and that was like a year ago. But and then DVD Leaks was saying shit about it too. That supposedly it's a leak, but they didn't fully know either. Right. They were also supposedly getting false information at some part due to the whole Canary Trap situation that supposedly went on with Behavior trying to figure out who's leaking shit.
I think at the end of the day, I think it's just people trying to make sense, like trying to. It sounds more. I just said that earlier, but I think that's maybe not getting quite enough credit. I think it's more people trying to make sense of something by effectively just guessing, and because something that people haven't seemed to have grasped is that whole licenses dropping out makes original chapters thing. That like the one thing that has ever happened in the history of the game got debunked. The one time that this has ever been brought up in conversation got debunked, but it was recently. So the idea is in people's heads. They're just trying to find a way to apply it to make sense of the current situation.
Sure.
When like what is it? It's Occam's razor, I think, is the term where the correct solution is often the simplest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And in my mind, the simplest solution, like it was with The Spirit and The Grudge, is just. They saw elements of the design that worked, so that they thought, why not make our own? Why not put some homages to this character in our original design?
Right.
Just like I did with Spirit and The Grudge. And I don't think that necessarily discounts Predator coming in the future. There's a good chance it still does. It doesn't discount it at all. Like, because we'd have said we weren't going to get another Onryo killer 18 months ago. Then we got Sadako. Like, there is nothing to indicate that Predator is any more off the table now than it was 6 months ago.
If anything, kind of shows that they do want Predator more in the fog.
That's what I think is like, even if it like went awry or whatever the case may be behind the scenes, this just goes to show that like if they were given the opportunity, if they were given Predator on a silver platter and they could make something out of this, they're showing their talent and they're showing that they can do it right. And that'll impress a lot of people. Now, unfortunately, from what I'm hearing, she's not impressing a lot of people. In fact, she's like other than the lore is great. You know, I love the lore. I tried accessing the PTB, But for some reason, like I said, I just got my computer fixed, and then when I went to go look, I'm assuming the PTB ran out of time or whatever, but I'm not able to access the PTB.
I think it ended like a day or two ago.
Yeah, and so because of that, I missed out. But
it's like only on for like a week, so I think it was Tuesday.
Yeah, but from what I've seen, I like it. It's innovative, it's new, it's really like everything about it is like it doesn't feel as slashery as like we've been getting slasher of like a perk that makes them run faster, a perk that covers more ground, or a perk
that lets them see people.
We're getting a lot of stuff of like this is all the killer's job, right? Like the killer is responsible. You gotta do this thing. The Knight, I think, was the first chapter to test the ability of letting I would say a combination of the Knight and Nemesis was like letting the game learn its way around too. Like the zombies, the other.
I think zombies got shadow buffed recently too.
The other people that are part of the Knight's like cult, as his ability. The drones, these are all abilities that are being added to the game that weren't there before. When they had done that statement of, when we use an ability, we're going to use it at least twice, that kind of thing. Trapper didn't really have his copycat. I can't think, other than, what's it called? The pig, but the traps aren't used the same way. They're very different. And so the fact that we're getting a Skull Merchant now that is using her drones basically in the same capacity as the Trapper, using his bear traps, especially if you try to disable the drones, the whole little beacon thing being attached to you, in a way of helping her find you, is exactly the same as it would be if you got stuck in a Trapper's bear trap and then screamed, because then he could see you from across the map. This is them following up on that promise. And
the only difference is you don't chuckle when you get caught.
Yeah,
drone.
And it was really cool. But I know the community is the Dead by Daylight community is weird. They are. They have a large side of it that is relatively open-minded, and a large side of it that wishes they had stopped at Michael. Like there are these. It's a war between these two fandoms. You have the first fandom that, when they added the Skull Merchant, this is new. Like me, this is new. They're stretching their range. Everything's going to be fine. We're learning new stuff about the game, and this will open the door to new stuff. The other side wants her either majorly nerfed or majorly removed. Like I know that a good chunk of the responses that I've heard and the responses that I've seen online of her are not favorable.
Yeah. I do want to say one thing back to the design. We were talking about Predator. Another character that comes to mind when I think of the Skull Merchant, especially when it comes to the lore, to me, as being a big comic book nerd, I think of the Shredder from Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
How they're like the ruthless business person. So that's in the way the claw like flicks, instead of like inserting it out, kind of like get the fuck out of my way after I hit you. And so it gives you so much vibes that remind me, like, could this also be an homage to, like, not just Predator, but to, like, comic books in general? Because it's very sci-fi, comic book, manga-esque.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's, like, a little bit of everything from those regions in there. Like, Predator is obviously a big inspiration for, like, the movement, like, the hand gesture and whatnot. But I could definitely see a lot of manga, comic book stuff. So, I am one of those people that think that this chapter is... It's another chance for them to open their wings to try something new. It's an interesting concept. I like the idea of it. It was implemented in right. It's only the PTB. Like the only thing they can do is improve it from here.
Right.
But what they given us is something interesting. What I don't like was when they were teasing the killer. It made it sound like it was more cyborg than what we got. Like I thought we were getting AI, like an actual AI killer that we play.
This was going to be the door opening finally for Springtrap, where they were finally going to add a hybrid killer of, because that's the thing that we haven't gotten. Like the one killer that we have that is a hybrid killer is Dredge. There is no other hybrid killers in the game where it's this combination of ideas. And
I mean, technically, Nemesis is a combination of the body parts, but I mean,
I don't. Well, that's different. That's like a viral infection, not much different than the Blight in terms of like he infected.
What are you talking about? It's an infection with like different parts of body.
Nemesis.
He's like a Frankenstein's monster.
In the lore of Resident Evil, I know Nemesis is like Frankenstein and their answer to Frankenstein of this scary, imposable form. But
do you think Frankenstein's body parts feel different pain for different people?
I'm just saying in the sense of like when you look at Nemesis, you see Nemesis. When you look at Pyramid Head and you see Pyramid Head, you look at the Hag and you see, you know, this swamp creature. You look at the Trapper.
I see the DC button. That's what I see.
You see of these all these are singular ideas. They're not combined ideas. You know, the Blight is like Jekyll and Hyde. You know, pretty obvious. There are these singular ideas of like we're going this one way with this one killer, and Dredge was like we're gonna throw a bunch of crap into this thing and see where it goes. And it is arguably one of the scariest killers that they've added in a while. I never felt more terrified running from Dredge. The first time I ever played against him, that I saved the whole video.
I got a meme for this, so whenever I can find it.
I saved the whole video of that on my YouTube of like running through the woods, but his perk is on, so the only things you could see are the trees right next to you, and you can see him catching up. That's all you can see. That is the scariest thing in my life. I loved it, and I also just love the design. It's an amalgamation of ideas. When they announced that this was going to be a sci-fi implementation of technology killer, like this is going to be and you know the first teaser of it had this weird combination of a skull and electronics. Everybody was excited. Everybody thought, oh, we're getting a cyborg, like we're getting this combination of ideas again, just like Dredge. And I think everybody was thoroughly disappointed when they found out that it's just basically a girl with a temper tantrum and a fantasy of her own character from her dad's manga, running around with a blade. Like it doesn't hit the same. It's not the same vibe. They don't fill that hole.
Well, I have some complicated thoughts on this. The first being not to be incredibly insufferably smug, but I called that it was a drone character from the teaser. So I get to put that on the fridge.
There you go.
But also, I think I see a lot of people blaming the chapter and what we got for not being what they were hoping for. But honestly, I think that's not an issue with behavior or with the chapter. That's an issue with people's expectations. And it certainly didn't help that VHS got Deathwell quite recently to pretty like meaningful applause from the player base. But I think people's expectations poisoned this chapter. And even if the chapter was technically perfect, which by all means it's not, people would still have disliked it just because it wasn't what they were expecting. And I think that's a really noxious way of looking at it. Like I wish people could take it on its own merit, but it seems to be impossible to be able to address this chapter in good faith, because I've seen quite a few people say, "Oh, I wish they played more into the cybernetic angle that it's supposed to be a cybernetic chapter." Like, no, it's not. You just want it to be. You just
I could only be what they made me to be.
Yeah,
treat this with some level of good faith rather than just thinking, "Oh, it isn't exactly what I wanted, so it's bad." It's like I now know how the people who really like Resident Evil 5, that really like Resident Evil 5 and really like Wesker, felt when I said I didn't like Resident Evil 5, that I didn't like Wesker very much. I now know how they felt. I just want these people to shut up. Like, let me have this, okay?
Let me have it.
Well, yeah, like, you can complain about the marketing. You can complain that, you know, like, oh, I thought it was going to be a cyborg killer because the elements of the trailers and the teasers and stuff like that are very cyborgy. Like, okay, fine. It's not a cyborg. Don't be upset with them. Don't be upset.
Yeah.
Don't be upset at the
I was
chapter.
upset with my own
Don't be
expectation.
upset at the devs. You know, accept that you were wrong, and take what you've been given as a gift and say thank you.
Except it's wrong.
Yeah, like the funniest part here is I think I actually prefer this. I think I prefer this to like a cyborg killer. I actually do prefer it.
I do too.
Like this is actually me as a Saw fanboy. Like where my whole vibe is I like the machine. I love machines and horror. I fucking love it. But I'm kind of mixed on like actual killer robots because I always prefer the machine as an expression of its creators' like intentions for it and of their personality and of their ideas.
Right.
And that's what the drones are. They are an expression of Adriana's will. And I find that to be far more interesting than just like a robot. It's I can't help but think, unless it had been done exceptionally carefully, which is difficult to do for a game that's been around for 6 years and has had quite established rules about its storytelling and its world building, it would have been very, very hard to make a robot killer not feel super forced in.
Yeah.
Like, but people complain about Trickster and about even the Skull Merchant not fitting in DBD. It came about the Knight for that, even like, on occasion. But like, you think RoboCop's going to make it in? Like, no, shut up. This is not how this works.
No.
Like, it would have had to be done with extreme care to fit into DBD's established aesthetic and way that it world builds, which is honestly more like a horror fantasy or a cosmic horror than a cyber property.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it would either need to be so grounded that it would basically be like what we got, where it's just using modern technology in a way that's potentially quite impractical, or it would need to be full-on Event Horizon cosmic horror. Like, it can't. Like, we'd either get Saw or Call of Cthulhu, but not Star Trek.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
No, I agree with that.
Yeah,
that's why Springtrap is like, that's a lot of people. I remember seeing the trailer, and there were two things blowing up in terms of what this could be if it was licensed. The first one was Springtrap because, of course, like I'll still put that magnet on my fridge. I'm very proud I got that ball rolling, and I'm glad it's still rolling. There was nothing more satisfying to me than when that teaser dropped, and I saw how many people were saying Springtrap. Was really happy because that shows the devs that we want it and that we'll buy it. You know, like try. But the other half of them were screaming Terminator. And that is nowhere near as scary. Like, because Terminator is a weird. I don't consider it horror. The first movie was considered horror because it was like killer robot for the first time coming to, like it was whoa, new. And then the second, every movie after the first one is not considered horror. It's considered action for a very good reason. It's because robots aren't scary. The Springtrap is weird because he's a cyborg in his own sense. It was an accident. It's his own invention, so like not only is it so fitting the vibe of Skull Merchant of like the invention is a reflection of the creator's madness. He's trapped in his own creation and he's freaking crazy anyway. So we're talking about the perfect formula for something killer versus Terminator was just, this is made to be a killing machine, and it like in the sense of the T-800, it's a infiltrator unit meant to look like people. Like there's not a lot of scariness there as much as it's just like this is strategy. Like it belongs more in like a Warhammer top-down, like League of Legends style game than it does a sort of Dead by Daylight situation. I would never expect to see Terminator added to the game. If he ever does get added, I will absolutely retract that statement and shut my mouth. But
I think licenses are a little bit different because the big issue with an original robot character would be integrating it into the existing world. Mm-hmm. But licenses need to do that because that world already exists. Yeah. Like I don't think we could never have gotten an original Wesker. That could never have happened. Not in a million years.
No.
The Wesker only even remotely works in DBD because the character already exists and the world building's already been done. I feel the same way about Terminator. Like, we couldn't have an original Terminator; it just wouldn't work. There would need to be too much done. You need to introduce too many elements that would alienate it, make it feel alien from the rest of the game. Again, no pun intended. But a licensed Terminator, much more likely, because the main obstacle has already been done by the existing work. It's what makes making original characters so difficult, because they have to fit into DBD's visual language and into its established world in a way that licensed characters don't really have to. They can kind of almost cheat.
Right.
Well, and most of the
like we had Pyramid Head, and his lore was pretty straightforward. Like just I'm the nightmare image of the main character from Silent Hill 2. I just exist. And then the entity was like, hey, why don't you come over here? I got something for you over here. And he's like, all right, bet. Like, that's all they have to do for a licensed killer is just one simple conversation between the killer and the entity, and they're golden. So non-licensed is a lot harder to implement because it's not that easy of a conversation. You can't just look at it and be like, oh, she's here because she wants to be. You need to know why.
It's like Michael. Michael just showed up. Laurie was taken, and then Michael just showed up. He's like, I don't know, I want her. She's mine.
I'm contractually obligated to come.
Yeah.
It's a two. I'm a package deal. I need to be here. All the licensed killers have this opportunity offered to them. This is a choice for them. The non-licensed killers, not always, but most of them.
Brian Pinhead just rocked up.
Yeah, you just showed up because of Dwight. Dwight's the reason Pinhead's in the game. Realm.
But
because he messed with the box.
But the non-licensed killers, all of them. Not all of them. About half of them are dragged in. They're for example, the twins is a perfect example of a killer being dragged into the situation. She's vengeful of her twin, right? And the twin's still alive in the fog. Like, it's a bribe. Like, you have to come, And the Skull Merchant and Trickster are different situations because they're willing to be in this situation.
Because otherwise they're gonna for Trickster, he's just gonna get arrested.
Trickster's gonna get arrested, and then what's her name's also gonna get arrested, right? She was in the middle of a
young Jin's. Oh no, Skull Merchant. Yeah, she's in the middle of chasing.
Skull Merchant's also gonna get arrested because she's in the middle of a crime before she
get killed by Trickster.
I read the whole thing, but I don't remember. She chased them into the fog, right? The brother and sister duo were running from her. And they all got swallowed into the fog.
At the same time.
Yeah,
I just thought about something. The young Jin's in her own personal purgatory now because she was already going to be killed by Trickster, and now she's getting killed by Trickster and all these other fuckers.
Over.
Yeah, she's in her own hell because of her own fault. Yeah. Wow, that's kind of ironic, isn't it?
Yeah. No, but there's a small selection of killers like that where it's and believe me, it's small. Of
where they're gonna die.
Yeah, of these killers that are that want to be there. Trickster wasn't dragged into it, really. The fog was embracing that entire stage as he was in the middle of that situation. His lore was a little bit lazy in that regard because the other characters, it describes exactly how they go into the fog. Skull Merchant's the perfect example.
I was lured with candy.
She chased them into the fog. They ran into it and got swallowed up all at the same time. Trickster was just standing there, pretty much, and the fog came to him. It was like, welcome, friend. I will take you. You're mine now. Like the other
master.
The others were all. They all had a choice. I think Legion, I believe, was on the run too, from what they did, and they ran into the fog. They were either bribed or forced to go into the fog. Versus the licensed
killers. I understand for the Legion. I thought the Legion was they were on the mountain, they went to the mountains, and the mountain got encased with fog, and then they just came this folk legend of these killers.
Something like that, but they were running anyway. They were on the top of that mountain because they were on the run because they had killed somebody already. The circumstances always seem to be for the non-licensed that they're running into the fog, they're running into this trouble. or they're being taunted into it or invited into it. Like the twins is taunted into it because of the twin.
They're a bribe.
Well, it's a bribe. It's a taunt. I would argue the entity, for the entity's sake, with how
the entity gives the killer the middle finger, they get pissed and chase after.
Pretty much, like the entity is not. It's not this gratuitous.
He's only did that with one character, and that's Freddy.
Yeah,
he's like, "Fuck you! You're stronger than you. Come here, bitch."
Yeah, the entity is not. The entity is not a nice being. It's it's definitely one full of pain and negative emotions. So it's more of a taunt than it is a bribe. But these other licensed killers are absolutely bribed in. They're just like, hey, like slowly sliding the napkin across the table and just being like, hey, you wanna?
Well, Leatherface is the same kind of stuff like that. Like he's gonna get arrested too, or he's gonna lose his family, and the entity just kind of takes him in. He's like, yeah, you're my son now. You're my boy.
Yeah.
Like, come here, camp survivors. Make them unhappy. Make me happy. I think there's another one too. I'm sure there's another killer that's similar to that, that's licensed, where they didn't just show they were taken.
Yeah. What do you think about that, Pixel? About
Bubba.
Oh, Pig. Pig's gonna die.
Wait,
yeah,
what?
Bleeding out on the floor of the Gideon meatpacking plant.
Oh,
right.
so okay, yeah. So I guess there are some circumstances where the entity is like, I guess our own minds are clouded about the morals.
I think it's the more humanoid, the more human ones.
Yeah.
More human. So anyone who's like partially supernatural has to get bribed in, or has
the
to
Dredge is the one killer.
The
The Dredge is the one killer out of all of them that is not bribed or anything. Last I checked, that the Dredge is in the fog. Like, this was a accident. Like, he's a side product. He was not. He wasn't bribed in. He wasn't. This isn't something.
He's an amalgamation,
Yeah.
kind of like the entity was formed. He's like this small community's amalgamation.
Yeah,
he's basically like the son of the entity, basically.
Right. This is the entity's offspring. This is the calamity that is the result of what the entity has been doing this whole time. Just taking all these things taking that from the world of reality and implementing them in its own fashion. And then the Dredge is like all of the scrap. This is all the stuff I didn't want to use. Here you go. And then it just grew conscious.
Well, kind of. It kind of puts itself back together and all that. But understand, it's like this amalgamation of like how the entity is this massive universal form of pain and suffering. The Dredge is like a minimal version of that, where it's on this particular set of island. Dr. Otto Stamper, like, is a main cause for with is it the Isle of Joy? I know, like, the whole Joy Island craft. It's really tied into that map that came with Dredge.
Oh, the
where this whole island was a
Garden of
community of
Joy.
people, and they weren't supposed to say anything, and they're all supposed to be happy, but they all have these negative thoughts built up, and they all burst at once and started with what's the survivor's name? Hattie. Didn't they catch her Hattie or something like that? No, there was a reporter that came to the island and said that somebody was snitching or something, even though she came on her own. And they drove everyone to basically kill each other, thinking they were snitch.
Well, Hattie herself isn't the reporter that came to the island.
No, it's not, no. But she came later, after the island.
Yeah, after it all went down.
Yeah. She was investigating the entity in her own way.
You
think her brother's there?
So is the Garden of Joy part of that island that got swallowed up?
Yes.
Or is it okay?
Yes. Yeah, it is part of the Withered Isle.
Okay. So wait, Hattie just walked in there.
Hattie's career is to investigate the overlaps between our world and the world of the entity. Typically, these are places where incredible tragedy and bloodshed have happened, and that includes the Withered Isle.
Okay.
So she visited the Withered Isle to investigate what happened to the town there.
Uh-huh.
And in doing so, she saw one of the overlaps, and that's kind of what ties Hattie and the Dredge together.
Okay, so so basically every chapter goes along, the killer and survivor get swallowed into the fog leaves, and so her job is to figure out what's doing this. She's trying to track down the entity and figuring out what's going on between that, and then she goes to this Withered Isle, and it's still happening. Like, it was such a big mess that it...
Well, every time the entity kind of reaches into our world, it leaves basically a scar.
Okay.
And Hattie's job was to document those scars.
Yeah, she had like a power where she could see them.
because she was sensitive to the overlaps, like Carmina Mora was the artist, and a few other characters. So she basically goes to sites of great tragedy, which is where the kind of boundaries between the entity's world and our own is at its weakest, and all these supernatural events started to be. She was also documenting supernatural events.
Okay.
And
It kind of hints at something like that with Zarina when she was taken, where she was in the cell where the Death Singer
And then the
was.
Wither
But Hattie's the
Isles
big
just
one.
happened to be a scar that hadn't healed yet, like a open door almost.
not
Was it-
quite.
was it
Because remember, she wasn't taken there.
Yeah.
She was taken much later in the Alps. Yeah, she was taken significantly later.
Was it Hattie or was it Zarina? One of them was investigating a lot of the places where killers were taken and all that stuff. Like one of them went to like.
Hattie was investigating multiple places where everything had gone wrong, but Zarina was specifically investigating investigating Hellshire Prison.
Okay, so it was Hattie who went to like I believe there's one of the lore. She goes to the estate, the Yamiyoko estate or something. One of them.
She goes to a cave.
To a cave.
Which is implied to be somewhere that the Black Veil, the entity cult, uses a hideout.
There was a lore in one of like the off-brand stories where they were going to places that people were already taken and they.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's gonna bug the fuck out of me. Now I gotta go through that website and read all the lore now. I gotta do you now. I gotta go crazy. Alright, what about our speculations for Chapter 28, our anniversary chapter?
Alien is the ultimate one I've heard all the time. That's the one that I'm just hearing constantly. Is it's gonna be Alien, it's gonna be Alien, and I honestly 100% doubt it. I think there's no. If this was supposed to be Predator, for whatever reason, whether like we had just discussed the whole thing about that, but if this was supposed to be Predator, then there's no way the next one's Alien. But the next one should be licensed. The pattern seems to be 3 non-licensed for every 1 license now, and this is.
Well, we've only gotten 2 non-licensed because Wesker was before Night, so. There's no chance it could be original.
I don't know. Wesker was. I wouldn't consider Wesker his own chapter as much as they do. Wesker is just.
What do you mean? He is a chapter. He's part 2.
Wesker. That's the problem, though. He's a part 2. He's not.
But he's a killer and 2 survivors.
He is a killer
and
2
well,
survivors. But I think Pixel knows best what I'm trying to say. Of like them introducing Wesker was just them continuing to run with the same license. Okay, that is not their normal pattern. Their normal pattern is to change licenses every so and so chapters, and lately it seems to be 3. They have not changed licenses in 3 chapters. And so that's what I mean is like the next licensed chapter is going to be something new. Everyone keeps saying Alien because this year is like the year of Alien, of like a movie, a show, 4 different video games, 3 in the works. Like this is the biggest year for the Alien property in a very long time. But I highly doubt that anywhere in that plan Dead by Daylight's a part of it. So I could honestly tell you that this year for this anniversary chapter and the next license chapter period, I have 0 idea. It could be any.
I hope it's original just to spite you.
I think it'd be licensed as well, but for a much simpler reason. This will be the start of year 8, and year 7 has had 3 original chapters and 1 licensed.
Yeah.
I'd be surprised if they went for the last time we had 3 original chapters in a row was when we went. I think it was Clown Legion Spirit, and that was a good 3, maybe 4 years. 4 years ago now. We hadn't had the original. No, it wasn't. It was Blight Twin Strikes, but that was still a while ago. And then we had 2 licenses back to back. I'd be astounded if they did 3 original chapters in a row because that's something they don't do very often. They've done it twice in DVD's entire history.
Yeah.
I'd be amazed if they did 3 in a row, especially because it's the anniversary chapter when something big is normally coming. Mm-hmm. Like we had, obviously we had Ghostface, and then we had Pyramid Head, and then we had Resident Evil, and then we had Hattie, who was a big character in the lore. Hattie coming was a big deal, and it wasn't really treated like that, but it kind of got overshadowed by Wesker. But licenses have typically been big. Either they've been big anniversary chapters. They've either been big license stuff, or it's been big in-universe DBD like lore and character stuff.
Right. Like
either way, it's been massive
for their expansion. Like
yeah, and we've just had like, and the fact that we've just had 2 Survivor original chapter, and it's not the anniversary.
Yeah.
Because you'd think a 2 Survivor original chapter would be an anniversary chapter, right?
Yeah.
But the fact that isn't indicates to me something huge is coming.
Yeah.
Something that will dwarf even a 3 character original chapter that we've never had before. I think Alien. I know you have your reasons for doubting it, but if we discount the connections between Chores of Torment and Predator, which I think, given their mostly just aesthetic, I think we can. Alien has never been more likely.
Yeah.
Because it's been long enough now after the Fox Disney merger.
Yeah.
That there would have been enough time for Behavior to make the negotiations. So and have the chapter made. It's been long enough, just about now. I think.
I agree.
I think it's never more likely.
Yeah, I agree. I'm keeping my expectations as diminished as possible. So
No, that's
that way
fair.
Stranger Things Part 2. Let's go.
I'm trying to think. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, if I'm gonna record my reaction to the next teaser and it's a licensed chapter teaser and it is Alien, I'm gonna freak, regardless of whether I am hyped or not hyped. But yeah. I don't wanna do. I shot my own self in the foot with this chapter, thinking it was gonna be Cyborg, and I'm not salty about it like half the community is, of like this chapter sucks because it's not a cyborg. Like I actually think she's hot. I think she looks awesome. Like she's the new.
Oh, you're gonna love her alternate outfit.
She's the new killer waifu right now. Like she looks really good. But I can't see the teaser get the vibe of Alien and then it not be. I can't afford to do that to myself. I would be in the ER with a heart attack monitor on my chest just to
like
make
Hellraiser
sure
was.
okay. Like I don't want
that's totally fair.
Have a stroke because I'm setting myself up for a hospital bill.
Yeah, I think if it isn't Alien, it's going to be some other massive license thing.
Like Pennywise, maybe?
Candyman actually is my leading bet. I know everyone talks about it, but I think, again, Candyman has never been more popular than it was fairly recently. Not too recently, but fairly recently because of the new movie.
Was really freaking good.
That movie was amazing.
I went to see my brother.
And you can guarantee Behavior was on the phone to someone's lawyers after MKT watched that one.
Yeah.
So I think
you know what? I got something to back that up too. Remember Tony Todd said that somebody asked Tony Todd, will we ever see Candyman in a video game? And he's just said soon.
Yeah.
So
that would be interesting. That would be curious. Yeah, I think it wouldn't surprise me at all.
Right? That was back
Hellraiser. That was like 2 years ago or something like that.
Development cycle. That's time.
That's enough time, yeah. It really wouldn't surprise me if that was what's coming, if it isn't Alien. My holdout is still like my Springtrap, my Alien, the one that I really, really want is obviously a Resident Evil Chapter 3.
Oh. Okay.
You're gonna get your hillbilly skin, sorry, bud.
If it I think at this point, if we are getting more Resident Evil stuff, it isn't coming soon. It isn't coming in the next chapter. I think honestly, October is a possibility. Like obviously imagine RE Chapter 3 for the Halloween chapter of this year. I could absolutely say that had been a year since Wesker. But it's a possibility. But it would definitely be too early after Project W, I think, for it to be another RE chapter.
Is there anything besides Pyramid Head that's like because think about it
Dead
for a second.
Space.
Yeah, well, like when you think Silent
Bioshock.
Hill, you think Pinhead. Like that's the first
Pyramid
thing that comes
Head,
to mind. But he doesn't.
Pyramid Head.
Or Pyramid Head. I'm so sorry. But the problem with that is that's the second game. That's the antagonist of the second game. So like we have not only the first game and all the other games that have followed, but this year is also a massive year for Silent Hill. Really big, and their
behaviors evolved too.
They're expanding on so much stuff with Silent Hill. I would be shocked if we already got a Resident Evil Part 2, you know. And part of me feels like these part 2, these expansions of chapters, in my opinion, in terms of like somebody that really excelled in marketing and somebody that really like, if I was in charge of this and I was in charge of how the licensing would go, leave the dual chapters, the expansion of chapters, to the game licenses. Leave it to Resident Evil. Leave it to Silent Hill. Leave it for the next game that you're going to add to the game. You know, we shouldn't get a Stranger Things Part 2. We should get it back in the game. I feel bad that I'm the only Demogorgon slaughtering people. I had a 4-man the other day that was absolutely depressing because
you still play Little Pet Demo Testicle Monster?
It's been so long since Demo left that people have officially like kind of forgotten the meta. Like, you know, if you watch any popular streamers go against a Demo, they obviously know what they're doing. But I went into this game and they were scrambling. Nobody was trying to loot me. They had no idea what the hell I was. Like, and which is great for me as a player experience. That is just so fun to watch genuine terror play out. But at the same time, it's lonely. It's sad that I can't look at a community, like, there's no longer like a subreddit where it's like demo mains come say hey. Like, there is one now just because of how little there are, but if there's like there's no community behind that anymore. So if they did a Stranger Things Part 2, cool. But that's a waste of that anniversary. That's a waste of that expansion. You could totally use that on another video game or something.
Exactly. Well, I think for anniversary stuff, and I want to actually bring up one of your videos, Pixel, if I can. Not this anniversary, but next anniversary. I'm pretty sure here soon, before too long, we're gonna get a very iconic character into the fog because of Victor Miller. And I think you already know who I talk about when I say that. That's gonna be Jason's gonna come at some point. It's not a matter of when. It's a matter of when, not a matter of how.
Yeah. Jason's a ticking clock, and honestly, I could even see it being the anniversary because they've already had enough time now to arrange a TV series.
Exactly.
Like, and I could it would be, I think, especially if Behavior already had a power ready, because they said they wanted Jason in for ages. It would not surprise me if they already had a power ready to go. That would Jason.
That's half of the era. All the retro colors are here now. Like, that's
Jason would be incredible. I think the opportunities to talk about Alien, Candyman, Jason. If it's Malignant, I'll puke. with unbelievable excitement. Or potentially in the Return of Stranger Things, because that would be sufficiently huge to push towards the Torment to the spring release. That would also be big enough, but I think it's too soon for that. There's a lot of potential, but this is the thing. There's so many things that it could be, and yet we have nothing to go on.
Yeah. That
I think it's almost pointless discussing it, especially because they may well do what they did with obviously the Ringu release, where they and with W, where they teased basically the whole chapter ahead of time. The last 2 licensed chapters have been teased basically a whole 3 months in advance, so we knew they were coming a long way off. There's a good chance that not long after Tools of Torment hits live, we already start to get hints about a new chapter, especially if it's licensed.
Dude, can you imagine? Just a minute. Hold on, I gotta pull it up. Go ahead and keep talking, but when I find it, I'll let you know.
It's just like let's see. The beauty of this year is we didn't have the year ruined for us already. You know, last year was depressing when we had Dredge, Wesker, and The Knight all leaked at once. Was absolutely depressing, and I think that's when Dead by Daylight started cracking down on the leaks.
Thank you, Maz.
Any small leaks, you know, like, oh, the next chapter is going to be this. I think they were actually completely fine with that, because that builds hype, that's free marketing. But when you expose the whole year, that's bad. You just ruined your game.
Including a major license chapter too.
And like
exactly.
I appreciate them for cracking down on the leaks. Part of me feels like they cracked down a little too hard. You know, like if I want to know some leaks. Like if I start hearing leaks that it's Alien next week or the week after that the next chapter is going to be Alien, yes. I want to hear those things, but I don't want to hear the whole year. So I would rather take no leaks than the entire year. So regardless of what happens, regardless of the chapters, and regardless how they decide to handle it, it's at least, thank God, at least it's still a mystery. Yeah.
He's gonna see the teaser and he's gonna open up. He's like, "Oh, it's gonna be Aliens, it's gonna be great," and all you hear is.
Oh God. Oh man. I would. Well, okay. Here's the other thing too. Is like the leak that we had a while ago. That was like supposed to. It was a joke. We found out later, but when it first came out, it was like the biggest Dead by Daylight leak that had ever existed at the time. Was like this huge paragraph Reddit, basically, of just all this stuff that Dead by Daylight had supposedly been planning. Thank goodness it was fake, because I guarantee you half of that, like especially that bottom half of the paragraph of like, you know, this isn't stuff that's in development yet, but this is stuff that we could do, like it's going to begin, would all be canceled if that was real. Like that's just terrible, you know. So thank God it was fake. But the description of the alien chapter in that leak, that fake leak, as much as it was like fake, it was a very believable description. Like, we haven't had a closed off map, a closed quarters map, I don't think, since Hawkins. Have we?
At RPD?
Well, okay, I'll only consider that now because they split it in half and because it's really tight now. But back when RPD came out, there was quite a lot of room. But the description of like the map is going to be either the Sulaco or the Nostromo, of these like tight-knit corridors, you know, like, damn, that was really good description. And the perfect two survivors too are Ripley and Hicks. The thing that screamed fake to me immediately was when they were like, they tried to get Sigourney for voice lines. I was like, man, if they tried, they would have got her. Because she's been wanting to dip her toes back into Alien for forever. Like, she was down for that Alien 5 movie that they canceled. And she
was super excited about the Fortnite stuff.
Yeah, and she's still excited about Alien. It's just nobody's reaching out to her because they're done with her. They don't want to touch her. Because
I'm more frozen than Mr. Bigglesworth in an Austin Powers movie.
Well, the story the story of Ripley is pretty much... It's well written if you exclude resurrections.
As you should.
If you exclude,
I'll do the fingering covenant.
If you exclude the worst movie in the entire franchise, her story is beginning and ending with a great note. You know, even though Alien 3 is still a questionable one in the community, people still regard it as a really good capping of the story of like how she goes down and how she is a hero of this story of like trying to stop the aliens at all costs for what they did to her crew. You know, like it's a saga that's really well written. Something that the future projects of Alien should take note of, because we haven't had that in these newer movies. Prometheus was a really good one. Not in the sense of like some of the action, you know. There's a reason CinemaSins always refers to certain scenes as the Prometheus school of running away from things, is because some of the direction of that movie was absolutely terrible. But if they had connected, like for example, if Shaw had lived to continue surviving in Covenant, okay, that would have made a way better connection than just David. Because we're not following David's story, we're following the human side of the story. And so for them to jump ship and change cast and like we have this new survivor badass chick, and like they need to take notes from the original saga. They need to take notes like we need to follow this one girl and her PTSD through this shit, and like the trauma that this causes. Like Halloween was going the right route. I've obviously in the last episode we explained my beef with Halloween Ends, but I also understand, as you guys had told me, you know, I understand where they were trying to go. They were trying to go with what the effects of Michael's actions have on the community, you know, and they're trying to follow that trend, and that's the right trend to go for a lot of movies, okay? Like, and that's what I'm saying for Alien here. They should go that trend with Alien. They should follow one person going through the rounds with xenomorphs and just suffering through it all, like the Servios Aliens game that's coming out. The brief description that we have of it is a post-war veteran who has previous experience with the xenomorphs that is going to go in guns blazing to stop them. Perfect! Because it's all about the trauma, because these monsters, the xenomorphs, are these beings, these perfect organisms of true terror. No one is going to walk away from them and be like, that was cool. Like they're going to be mortified, and you want to see that change. You want to see that evolve over a storyline, and I hope that we're with this new movie. I love Fede Alvarez, okay, and he's making this movie. I hope he sets up a heroine with this new girl. The only other thing I've seen her in is Pacific Rim Uprising, and she wasn't great in that. But that's not exactly a movie I should judge her acting merit on. But I want him to take her and go, this is the new Ripley. And then next 4 or 5 movies that we do of this franchise, because everybody has been demanding a good Alien film for a while, and I know that Fede Alvarez is going to make it good. If they make 4 or 5 sequels for this, it needs to be her. They need to keep it going. They can't just drop it like they have with Covenant and Prometheus, because that's a consistency issue, you know? But Ripley and Hicks was the perfect combo. And then Candyman actually brings up a good idea in my head, because you could combine old and new with that. You could do the main therapist girl, or she's a teacher, or is he the teacher in the original movie of Candyman? I thought he was the teacher.
I think she's doing a report on
She's
something.
the reporter.
I'm pissed because we watched Candyman, me, Mitch, and a few other friends. We watched Candyman recently.
Yeah.
And
I just watched
it
recently too, so I'm forgetting.
And I have it right here next to me too on the DVD case, and I'm like, I know I just watched it recently. It's like, but all I could focus on was Tony Todd and how handsome he was.
Yeah, no, but like we have her as like the reporter. Oh man, what was she doing though? Oh no, you're right. She was a reporter, because that's exactly what happens in the remake too. Is he's an artist, but he's doing research, just like how she's doing research on Cabrini Green, and that's how they both encounter the Candyman, is through that area. But you could do her, and you could do what's his name's wife, from the remake as the 2 survivors, and then you could do a skin for every Candyman that they showed in the reboot. Like they could do a skin for every single version that's shown, because you see them in the reflection of the car. You see him, you see the one prior, the one before that, and then you get to Tony Todd. You could do a skin for every single one of those. Just have the Tony Todd voice lines, because he's the one that you hear at the end of the movie, like he is the Candyman. And you are good. Like, that's a perfect license chapter right there for the anniversary. Just bombard it with fantastic lore and respect to the franchise. That's the thing that I think that knocks Jason out of the race for the anniversary. Because you're right, Pixel. The anniversary chapter is going to be huge. If it is licensed, it's going to be massive, because it's got to make up for the time it's missing, because the last few chapters have been original, but it's also making up for the fact that this is an anniversary chapter. This is our next year of Dead by Daylight. We're going to open the doors with a bang. So this needs to be something with a bunch of richness and everything that they can add to it. Jason's a little complicated just because of the rights thing. I know that What's-His-Name has the rights now. I know that they're open about finally expanding the franchise again. Like, they're finally getting the door open, but the licensing, just like Ash and the Evil Dead franchise, is kind of all over the place. There are different studios that made those movies all over the place, and so it's hard to gather all of them into one. You know, Evil Dead, the only reason we got Ash versus Evil Dead and not an Evil Dead chapter was because the only rights they could get was the TV show. And
well, Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Here's where it gets very convenient with Friday the 13th, because I can't remember who it was who said they'd seen my video. One of you said you had.
I did. It was me. I watched all
Yes,
your.
Rafi's seen it. Well, I did a bit of research into this myself for a video on Jason I did only a couple of weeks ago now. It wasn't very long ago. But the reason the Crystal Lake show is being made, and that it's able to be made, is able to use everything, is because Sean Cunningham's claim over the franchise applies only to cinematic releases. TV series and anything else to do with Fridays is exclusively in the control of Victor Miller, and then use
So
whatever he wants.
the movies
for that. The movies are tied up at New Line with like Sean Cunningham and whatnot.
Right.
But rights to everything else in the franchise, Victor Miller has exclusive control over. That's how the Crystal Lake TV series is being made.
Got it.
Because it's a streaming series, which means it doesn't have to go by the court ruling that Cunningham has to control the movies.
Okay.
So the rights to getting Friday the 13th in DVD have exclusively in Victor Miller's court, and it has literally never been freer.
And the best part about that is, I remember too, it's because of Victor Miller. We even got Friday the 13th the game because it was supposed to be like Camp Blood or something like that.
Yeah, but that
and
was.
he said they went to him and he said, "Why not just do Friday the 13th the game?" And then Sean Cunningham came around.
Yeah, I was gonna say that Sean's the one that killed it. Was that crap, but.
So Victor Miller's down to do stuff with Jason and almost anything. So I'm sure he'd be more than willing to do a collaboration with Dead by Daylight if they reach out to him.
Oh, I'd love to see Victor Miller's. So Victor Miller doesn't have any control over the movies, but he does anything outside of movies. I would love to see.
Yeah.
I know that we're getting a Crystal Lake, the Crystal Lake show. That's a prequel show, right?
Yes.
It starts off that way, but they said it'll catch up to the movies over time if the seasons get renewed.
Okay. So that's
like Brian Fuller's even said, "Oh, if it gets 10 seasons, I'm campaigning to take Jason to space."
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what I want to see is like, if it's a prequel, great. It fills in a lot of gaps in terms of the beginning of the story. You know, when we see the first movie, we hear about how Jason drowned. I would as morbid as it sounds, I would like to see how that actually went down. I would like to see whether she just snapped and went crazy, or whether her motives were like completely justified. It's the beauty of that mystery.
It's gonna be a crazy thing where she could have saved him, but she also doesn't know how to swim.
Yes, like you know what I mean? Like we don't know exactly what went down. So I would love to see what went down, but it also also go down. It could go down the. I'm gonna call it the rabbit hole. I've never actually seen the show, but I know that it's got a lot of characters that are kind of psycho, and they wind up killing people multiple times throughout the show. Like it's a consistent problem through the show, and because of that, this could fill in all the gap time between Mrs. Voorhees losing her son and the fateful end of her murder spree leading up to the end of the first movie. And then you could go in another season, like you said, Pixel, if it gets renewed, you could go in another season of from that really well done jump scare that actually made me spill my popcorn all over the floor when I saw it in the theater on a Tuesday Night Classic, of him leaping out of the lake and getting her in the boat. You know, going from there and being like, okay, how does he go from that to this hulking monstrosity that we see in the second movie, right? And in the third movie, like, how do we get that Jason out of this?
I thought that was always like a flashback, like it was in her head the entire time.
The river Jason was her like dream / nightmare when she was unconscious.
Oh, yep. Okay. So the one that comes to get her not in the second one.
Is adult Jason.
Not in the second one, right? Like she doesn't die immediately in the second movie.
I think she does die. She dies in the opening when she goes to his house.
No. I know she dies immediately. Like it's like the beginning of the movie. We're catching up with her for a sec, and then jump scare. Jason shows up and kills her, and she's dead. And then the rest of the movie goes on. I didn't think that was the second movie. I thought that was the third.
No, that's the second one.
He gets his hockey mask, but
the
second one's Baghead, and I didn't realize, I guess, that was the second movie. That's the problem with Friday the 13th is how many damn movies there are. I lose track of all of them.
Yeah, he gives her a mild skill issue with the ice pick.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah.
But
the main point is they have the rights. If Victor Miller has, by the sounds of it at least, the rights to do whatever they want with Friday in terms of video game adaptation. It's only movies where they have to get Cunningham's consent.
Yeah. Well,
so Jason has never been freer.
That's what I'm excited to see, though, is like this new interpretation of Jason, not the remake version. Like we had all these we always.
I like the remake. I thought it was a really cool look at Jason.
It was 2 movies. We got 2 remake movies, or was it just 1?
No, we got 1.
Just 1.
Okay.
Halloween was 2.
Halloween was 2. Yeah, I know. But
we got Trash and Trasher.
the Friday the 13th, then we got that remake, and the remake again contexts Jason a little bit, just like how
I like the idea that they didn't do the first movie in that remake. Like it starts with like the ending of the movie, and then we just go to like part 2, part 3, basically in the same movie.
Yeah.
2.5.
Yeah,
2.5 basically. That's basically describe it.
Yeah.
My question is for the Sean Cunningham and the prequel series is not Sean Cunningham. Victor Miller's prequel series is, are they going to tie into anything that they've already mentioned in the comic books that they did for the series, like with the abusive stepdad who like beat him with bottles? I'm curious. There's a lot of shit in the comics that are weird, because there was a sequel that they did for Freddy vs. Jason and Ash vs. Freddy vs. Jason, where they basically had Freddy basically kind of hint that he was Jason's biological father, and that's why he dealt with dreams and like talk to him. So it was a weird shit. There's a lot of weird shit that goes down in the comics.
I think that's just true in comics in general. Comics of anything has some really weird shit that like most other mediums can't get away with. Like I remember watching a Actually episode on YouTube, and if you haven't heard of that show, it's great. But there's like a bit where they're talking about what hero is not an X-Man or something like that, and then they bring up a Marvel hero in the comics that apparently is the same character. It's like the same power set as the one that was recently featured in Doom Patrol, that involves sexual stimulation, is all I'll say, to keep me from getting demonetized here.
Yeah.
And there, it's that kind of stuff that, like, when you go to see Avengers, you're not gonna see that hero on screen. Like you know, there's so much crap in the comics that like is in there because it could be, and you could get away with that when you wrote it down. But these days, if you're gonna adapt something like that, if you're gonna put it in a game, if you're gonna put it in the movies, if you're gonna do anything,
I do really like that.
You gotta be careful.
I do like that Freddy was supposedly Jason's dad. It kind of tied in the worlds. So I thought it'd be really interesting.
Is that why they have a collab of like Freddy versus Jason is like mom and dad?
No. So it's just Ash versus Freddy versus Jason was the sequel they never made, but they turned to a comic book instead.
Oh, okay.
And in the comic, they basically Freddy basically, not like he doesn't fully say, but he basically a lot of the implications implies that he's a lot of hints and implications, especially in the dream state, that he is Jason's biological father. That Pamela was supposedly tried not to get you demonetized. He did things when he was the slasher. He did other stuff too, the women.
Yeah.
And supposedly Pamela was one of them. She kept the baby, and that's what Jason was.
Yeah.
So Jason's technically a Krueger, and it's also how he's able to enter his dreams, despite him being asleep. Because technically, he's not supposed to go into the dreams of people who don't know who he exists, or unless he's blood related to.
Right.
It's part of like the whole canonical lore of the movies and stuff. So basically, that was the theory from the movie, that he was the father, and they continued that into the comic, and it basically confirmed. Not really confirmed, but like I said, hinted that Freddy was hinting that he was his father, and he was telling him what to do using Pamela, basically. The same way he was doing in the comic.
The only thing I'm excited for, I guess, what I was trying to say in terms of where the TV show is going, and how Victor Miller has access to his character again, in the sense of anything but a movie. I want to see a new Jason. You know, like that was the excitement I had over the remakes of Halloween, or the reboot of Halloween until Halloween Ends. You know, I will
like how they set up Tommy.
I will constantly have Jason. My beef. Yeah, I will constantly have my beef with Halloween Ends, simply because we've always obviously addressed it down in the last episode to the marketing issue. It was just a marketing issue, and that's their fault. But the
anything you gonna say, Pixel? By the way, because I can hear you kind of huffing in the background.
No. I'm actually just humming in a sense. But I have before this goes short topic. I have two. I want to call them speculations, predictions of Friday the 13th that I think before I forget, because I will forget because I'm stupid. Adrienne King, who played Alice in the first movie and died and got killed off in the second, is attached to Crystal Lake. She's got a recurring role in that project. We know that much. I with my giant brain, I shall assert that she's playing Pamela Voorhees.
Yeah, she like a weird.
Because she's the right age for it, and she seems to be really like. She loves Friday the 13th. The fact that she's attached to it immediately makes me think, yeah, that could be our Pamela. She kind of looks like Betsy Palmer did back in 1980. And the second one is, I would be amazed if by the end of next anniversary, Jason was not in Dead by Daylight.
Yeah. Well, I agree. Like where I was going with Halloween was like it's the same Michael, you know, like the character, it's Michael Myers, no change. But the version that we get to see in Halloween, the 2018 Halloween Ends or Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends is a very different Michael. You have this Michael in the original that is like going one by one, you know. I don't want to say repeatedly, but like he's got a method to his madness a little bit. Like he's doing everything kind of in an interesting way. And then you have Halloween 2018 and Halloween Kills, where he's just going off. And because he's been locked away for like 40 years.
He's killing towards his childhood home.
Yeah, I mean, there's a pattern in the first movie. Yeah, like he's killing on his way to his childhood.
But they also say that in Halloween Kills that like he's not killing blindly. He's making a carving on his way back home. I mean, where he always goes back to.
But there's the different. You see some versatility to him. The first movie, it was like they're all kind of dying the same way. When you find their bodies, it's in different ways. You know, he's an artist of his craft, right? You know, with the one girl laying in front of the headstone, and
Leonardo da Vinci.
Yeah, like and then it's demonstrated again in Halloween Kills. He's an artist of his craft. The kids are wearing their Halloween masks, even though they're dead, and that kind of thing. Like he's doing this stuff in a certain way, and he's doing it in a certain pattern. But you're seeing him go from this like sort of not mild, but like short kill process of like I'm just gonna kill him, to like going absolutely feral the entire time. Like when he's killing somebody, he's killing everyone efficiently, thoroughly, brutally. Like it's nowhere near the same level. Like Halloween, the first Halloween, compared to the violence of the newer Halloween movies, is like a PG-13 movie, because these newer movies he goes ham. And I want to see like that for Jason. I want to see this new interpretation of Jason, even though it's the same character, still Jason Voorhees, still wearing the mask. I don't want to see any extra. I would love extra backstory on Jason, but I don't need it. I just want to see him change from this stiff kind of walking menace that hack and slash to I am adaptable. Like Michael immediately walked out of that burning building, picked up a fire axe, went ham. He was challenged with a buzzsaw, turned it around, used the buzzsaw. You know, he had versatility. He's adapting to everything that's going on, even though he's got a certain plan, even though he's doing it the same way. We've
only ever seen him in the summer. That's another thing too. And when it comes to versatility, you see summer, early fall, and I know that the plan for they make a movie a lot of times is they want to set it during the winter. I don't know what they're going to do with Crystal Lake and how they're going to do that, but I do know that you're right. They needed to show more adaptivity. I mean, they've done that with Jason a couple times where he's done unique kills and he's done different things. I mean, the sleeping bag kills, like how adaptive you get. You just grab him on the sleeping bag and slam him against a tree.
Right, and like, you know, Jason X, you know, like I personally like Jason in space is such a weird concept, but
it's okay, guys. He just wants some shit.
That's not exactly adaptable. Like you're giving him a new environment, and you're giving him a new skill set because this isn't the same. This isn't exactly the same Jason. This is a different one, right? But there was still, it still felt like the same sort of like lumbering oaf kind of thing. And the video game, Friday the 13th, the game, didn't do anything to change that either. Of just him kind of like wandering around Crystal Lake and doing what he needed to do. Other than the whole teleportation mechanic was really, really damn cool. But but besides that, like anytime he had to go chase and kill somebody, other than the unique kill animations, his versatility and weapon set is not big enough. Like the Texas Chainsaw game is exciting because you don't just have Leatherface with his chainsaw. You have the rest of his family with a different weapon set. Like we're talking about a huge amount of versatility with that.
Oh, we're going into my territory. Oh, I'm ready for this.
And same with Evil Dead. You know, we got these demons that are all different. They all can do. It's adaptable. And
you're gonna say that for the family, real quick, about Texas Chainsaw Massacre. We're gonna say that the guys are adaptable, but you also can keep in mind that when the game goes on, it's gonna be the same characters over and over again. And they're gonna keep adding new family members. So the idea of what I understand with the game is you want to mix and match the team.
Right.
So I'm assuming, like, you're always going to have Leatherface. So I'm going to tell you that right now. Like, every game will have Leatherface because he's the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like, he's the chainsaw. Well, but like your family determines how your game plays. Yeah. It's like how your team will define how you play. Mm-hmm. The same way with the Survivor. And yeah, Friday 13th was an early development for those two companies. We got to keep that in mind. Same way like Predator Underground was like a step up because it brought new abilities and perks and guns. You know, we played it together and we talked about while we were playing it.
Yeah.
So you know that they're stepping up their game, and this is where your versatility comes in, and it always stems from Jason. Yeah. Jason is this killer who's he's set in his ways, and that's just how people like him. Though. A lot of people just like him being the big lumbering oaf, the guy who's like super strong and unkillable. It's what's his appeal. Well, Michael is like this deranged serial killer who's just sadistic in the way he does things. He's just quiet. I didn't like him in Kill. That's just what I'm going to say right now. I didn't like that he went ham. I kind of like the idea of him being this silent stalker who gets you when you're not looking.
Yeah, I liked him going ham just because it was new. I understand if you're trying to be authentic. Okay, like if you're trying to keep the ball rolling for the nostalgia, cool. But there's only so far the ball can roll before you introduce something new, and because then it's gonna stop, and then everyone's gonna be like the same thing, you know. And they can go that way with Jason because so many people for Dead by Daylight have wanted him in so bad that no one's gonna care how they add him. Right? Like, no one's going to care.
A lot of people will. You gotta keep in mind that Jason's the most iconic character.
I mean, yeah, well, they'll nitpick, but if he's in the game, they'll be happy, period. Like even if they get upset about certain details and certain weapon set and certain ability, blah, 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 perks or whatever, they'll nitpick, but he's in. And they'll be happy that he's in.
Well, if you don't want to nitpick, I honestly think that the behavior's listening, and I'm going to say it again, they should listen to Pixel's concept of Jason. It's the most authentic Jason concept I've seen from anybody. Mm-hmm. And it's the same thing with Predator, too, when he did his Predator concept. You want to be authentic, but you also want to have that kind of adaptability that feels like it's from the movie.
Right.
It's true to the character. And I can't see a version of Jason where they don't use Pamela in some way or form, like Ted. Being like something that counters him, but also helps him. Considering like she talks to him all the time.
Right.
And that's what I want from Jason too. When they add voice lines, I don't want Jason to say anything or make much noise. I just want to hear obviously the Kiki mama. But I want the new they got to get new voice actors. Probably who'd you say was supposed to be playing Pamela? Whoever plays Pamela in Crystal Lake would love to have them voice Pamela.
Adrienne King.
Yeah.
It'd be great to have Adrienne King as Pamela.
Which I do like
both in DBD and in Crystal Lake.
I do like that a lot. It's exactly like what they did with Wednesday, where they had Christine Ricci come back, but she's not Wednesday. She's another character like that.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, because not only is it not just a cameo, because cameos are cool. But not only is it not just a cameo, but it's actually a role that they could expand upon because they're very familiar with the property. Yeah. I love that. I could not give enough praise for that. But we're running low on time here. So what we're gonna do is everyone in order is gonna announce if they have anything to announce. Of course, I know Pixel, you're working on something very special, and I'm not gonna be the guy that's like, you need to announce it right now. Like you know, you take your time. Absolutely, but like if anybody's got anything upcoming that they're willing to announce here, now is the time. So for example, like I'll go. I lost a friend recently. If anybody is a fan of Ark Survival Evolved, which I'm a mad fan, I love the game very much. I was a big dinosaur kid, and there's a channel out there called Neebs Gaming. They're a fantastic channel, very funny. If you haven't heard of them, please go watch them. They're the funniest people on the planet, especially their Ark series. It's just, man, like I'll send you guys a YouTube short of one of my favorite people on that channel. It was, oh my god, they're just so funny.
Neebs is funny. I've always loved the Neebs crew.
We recently lost a member of their cast due to brain cancer, and I knew him personally. He gave me advice on my YouTube channel on how to run it properly. And ironically, due to my computer breaking, I wasn't able to fulfill my wishes in terms of keeping his promise, keeping his advice alive. But I'm working on it now that I'm back. And one of the things that I'm going to do is I'm going to make a tribute video to him, of course, and then I'm going to start playing Ark as a series myself. Like, you know, I really enjoy the game, and my community is too hyper-focused on Dead by Daylight, and I know that if I want to grow, I need to grow my library of options. So Ark is going to be one of the few first steps into that. And of course, now that I finally have access to Evil Dead again, Pixel, me and you gotta lobby up, and you too.
Well, I want to be down for that. I want to do that
like,
too.
We gotta get together at some point and get some Evil
Log
Dead
Wanderers versus the Kandarian Demon. Let's go.
Sounds like a plan.
That needs to be a thing now that I finally got that back up and running, because that wasn't on the table before. But now that there's a way around it that I figured out, then I'm totally down for that. But I just got to keep expanding on my stuff. But that's what I got planned. So, Raffi, you want to go next? If you got anything?
I got a couple of things. I'm currently going back into doing Dead by Daylight funny moment videos. So, definitely got a video in the work for that and doing some other stuff too. But mostly DVD funny moments and discussions. But the big thing I want to guess I'll announce is I'm going back to doing music. So. A song we've been working on for a while that really has just been in hiatus is actually happening now. So get ready for not just Springtrap, but we're going to be announcing a little cipher of the most wanted licensed killers in Dead by Daylight.
Oh, so. Shit. Was that between you and him? That was actually a conversation between the two of you?
Between what? The two of us? No. That was between me. I decided that recently that it's not just going to be Springtrap. We're going to do something that helps with the community.
You had me almost have a stroke. For context for my viewers, like there was a conversation you and Stupendium had recently on Twitter. And
oh, yeah, the slasher thing? No, you don't want to do that shit.
Really? Oh, man. Like, that is so up his alley.
He's a great guy, but... It is, but he's doing some Call Unlikely stuff, and he's doing more stuff that wants to be... He's trying to do stuff that not a lot of people do. He just did the Muppet stuff, which was fantastic.
Okay. Yeah.
So, but what I'm doing is I'm doing my own little cipher, and I'm only going to do 3 or 4 characters, but you can guarantee to see Springtrap, Jason, Alien, and I'm thinking the 4th one would be Candyman.
Nice.
And I might throw some references to other licenses, too, in there. That way, who didn't make it? Like, I know I want him writing a line for Malignant right now. That is definitely a reference to Malignant. I haven't finished it yet, but...
Yeah.
I want to make it to where it's obviously a Malignant line. It might just be the word Malignant. Who knows?
I mean, if it works.
And I still have
we'll find out what works.
I still have the draft that we have, the final draft of that one song that we had planned for the spring.
Well, it basically evolved into whatever this project is. Yeah. So it elements from that still in there, but I figure like why cover one when we can cover a vast majority and get everybody a little bit happy and into it. So it'll most likely be around 2. I haven't decided yet. It depends how well the first one does, but
yeah,
it's happening.
I'll start working on finally getting that going now because I've got some reach now. I recently interviewed a main actor from the Callisto Protocol, which had me very excited, and because of that now I'm confident in my own reach. So I'll try to get our first draft of that song going too, so that we've got kind of a double whammy of Springtrap going. But Pixel, what do you got working?
Oh, I've got so much in the pipeline. It's honestly kind of stressful. Obviously, with the new chapter coming out, I've got the video about Skull Merchant's lore and design that's in production at the moment. Script is all done and everything. Recorded everything, just a matter of editing. I've also got a sponsored video, a DVD mobile have paid me to talk about the new update.
Ooh.
So that's going to be coming out probably early next week. I decided to make my Potential and Problem series where I talk about the potential and problems of potential licensing DVD. I want to make that a monthly thing. So one of those will be coming up in probably not too long. Haven't quite figured out what it's going to be yet. I can't really talk about it in full detail yet, but I'm participating to some degree in a video by a creator that I'm sure many people who will be familiar with. They are the bigger creator, I think, than any of us here, and you'll see when that comes out because I'm really excited to get that to see that to its completion.
That's exciting to hear. That's
yeah, I'm really excited.
Got my first Overwatch video that I'm going to be working on as well towards the end of February. I've been playing a lot of that game.
Oh, is that the Sigma Male? Sigma Male.
Talking about Symmetra, actually.
Oh.
Kind of a follow-up to my Claudette video where I talked about Dead by Daylight's autistic representation. And I want to compare it to Symmetra, who was, of course, Blizzard's canon autistic representation, who I think handled it a lot better, which is unusual because Blizzard doesn't tend to handle their stories very well. Extremely rare Blizzard dub.
Yeah.
I have so much on my plate right now, and I've just been trying to race to get everything done, especially because I'm also probably moving house at the end of the month. So there's a whole lot of stuff that is ongoing right now. March is going to be big. I'm really excited to get everything out.
Well, take your time, man. Don't bury yourself in it, because I remember I was doing the Springtrap videos constantly. You know, I did the original one that currently has like almost 400. Maybe it broke 400 finally. I'm not sure. Almost 400,000 views. Like that is my most viewed video for sure. And so I was like, okay, I gotta keep this ball rolling. So I was like daily making these freaking videos, and that, man, I remember taking a month or two off, and just because I was so drained on the topic. And then not long after that, my channel immediately went silent. Like, I'll be lucky if I break 1,000 views on my videos now. So people will take a well-worked product after a series of time way more than they will at daily installation of tiny stuff, you know what I mean? So take your time, man. Make sure it's good.
You're well and truly preaching to the choir. This is the guy who made an hour-long artist video.
Yeah.
I tried that too. I did Bird and Brash, and I thought it was funny.
Yeah, there is one more exciting thing that this isn't necessarily going to be soon, but it may end up having to be soon. Because we don't know who's getting the next tome. Normally they would have leaked it by now, but something very exciting I want to do, and it's probably going to need to happen at some point this year. Because I want to one-up that artist video that I made, the one that where I interviewed a survivor of the Pinochet regime. I want to one-up that and do something even better for when she gets a tome, because odds are she'll get one within the next year or so.
Right.
I want to go to Chile and record a video out there, because she's based on a real life political figure, Victor Jara. I want to go to the place where he was killed. Because the stadium where he was executed has been turned into a memorial to him. And there's a museum of remembrance there for the victims of the Pinochet regime. There's memorials, there's libraries in the city of Santiago. And if I can go there and make it like a week-long documentary project, that's the dream. And if that's going to happen, if Carmina gets a tome, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to Chile and record.
You're going to film all the existing pros that live there.
Okay. I'm telling you right now, that's going to be gold. And I guarantee you, if Dead by Daylight Mobile is already sponsoring you to take a look into Dead by Daylight Mobile, that means your reach, just like how mine was with Callisto Protocol, your reach is just as good. You got to reach to behavior, and you got to be like, hey, I will make a full-blown documentary on like the development of your chapter, of like how the correlations of the characters and stuff, because you're the lore guy, you love the lore, you love the story, you like the enrichment of the story, and you want you want to make it even better by showing where the story came from. They would absolutely pay for that trip. They would pay for the filming materials. Like you gotta reach for that, man. That's like a magnum opus right there. I would pay to see that. They don't normally show documentaries in theaters anymore, but like I would pay to go see that. Like that's my alley. And I love documentaries about video games. I can watch the League of Legends Origins movie like 50 billion times because it was a really
on Netflix.
well-done one. Yeah. It's no longer on Netflix, but it was, man, that was such a hoot. And
a lot of the good things are no longer on Netflix.
Yeah.
Sounds like Netflix.
Yeah, but they will literally pay you to make their game. That's just nothing but free marketing for them. Like if they pay you to go do your dream and make something you want to make, and then you could post that on YouTube or post it on a streaming service and people will watch it, they'll pay to watch it, guaranteed, and that income goes to you, and then they just sit there and go, let's look at all the new purchases, let's look at all the new games that we just sold, our next quarter looks great. Like that's
Sir Squidward,
that's
money.
That's the goal. That's so good.
Literally, since I've realised that she was liable to get a tone, I was like, this is what I have to do.
Yeah.
I need to go and make this because there's so much to talk about. And about fairly recent history that people don't seem to know about. Because they're not taught about it in schools because it's all Romans and World War II.
Right.
Like, come on. This is modern history, and a chapter that no one really paid much attention to cut surprisingly close to the bone on it. And I want to show some attention to that. I really, really do.
Yeah, no, that's great. They'll pay you to go do that. Like I guarantee. Behavior. If you're listening,
they're gonna be like, nah. He's like, nah, we ain't gonna do that, but we'll pay you to go to America so you can go do the.
Oh God! We'll pay you to come to us and work.
No, I think they're in Canada. They're in Canada.
No, I know, but like I'm just saying, they have a behavior in America too. Like they have teams in certain locations that
really
go to the circus for a clown video.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We'll pay
just like
you.
Local.
Wow, this artist video seems really, really interesting. You know what we'll do? We'll pay you $5, and you're gonna go down to the carnival and do a documentary on how clowns work and explain how
while throwing a bottle at random people.
No, even better. We won't pay you
perfume.
We won't pay you any money. You just go walk over to that hospital over there, find as many twins as you can, and talk to all of them about how that relationship works. Like,
Lord,
greedy capitalists. Like, that's totally what that.
We're gonna send you to Korea to interview. We're gonna. I can't remember the fuck. God, what? Well, you can tell I feel old. I can't even remember the name of the current K-pop band.
Oh, Trickster. You're gonna go interview BTS. You're gonna go down to BTS.
Yeah, BTS.
And KDA. You're gonna talk to them in the same room, and you're gonna go, what remix did you use using the screams of the fans that you murdered?
Well, Sadako has a YouTube channel. Have you guys seen the Sadako Yamura official YouTube channel?
Yes.
Oh, she does. She has an official.
Yes.
I'm looking at it right now.
It's fantastic.
Yeah,
it's all in Japanese, but all subtitled, and it's fantastic. Genuinely, it's so charming. You have to see it.
It's really good. I think we're talking about the same person, right? It's the one that's like, she is Sadako and
yes,
playing Dead by Daylight and stuff like that, but she's not like talking. Like, it's not her having fun, like, just in a cosplay, like half these other, a lot of American content creators do, where they're like, oh, I'm gonna play Dead by Daylight, but as the Trickster. Like, no, she's just dead silent.
Completely in character.
I'm full character Sadako, just playing Dead by Daylight. She's the best.
Oh,
I love her so
she
much.
does Leatherface. I have the mask and outfit and everything.
Yeah. And then when you get when you get hit with a pallet, you just start going.
He starts screaming. He needs to cry when he gets hit. Like, that dude, like, he's sensitive. He's a sensitive boy.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that'll conclude.
Well, that's a thumbnail I didn't want to see. I just saw something I probably should not have seen.
that's gonna call it for the second official large episode podcast for the Fog Wanderers. We will have Tootin with us, obviously next episode. He was preoccupied for this episode, and we wish him our best wishes and prayers go with him in terms of why he had to be delayed. And I hope for the best, and I hope for you guys, the viewers, that you'll continue to watch us and our independent content, as well as watching the Fog Wanderers in the future. So thank you all so much for watching, and if you have any other thoughts, questions, concerns about Dead by Daylight or any other horror entertainment, leave a comment down below. Me and the rest of my squad here are pretty well articulate with the comments, so we'll definitely be in touch. So thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye!
Bye, merch!